Hey guys, welcome back to another Been There Fix That tutorial. In this video I'm going to show you a macro I made to help organise everything that comes through during the dailies process. Each film or TV show receives paperwork in different ways. This macro is mainly designed for when the lab sends everything inside an editorial package, but it's still useful when you receive paperwork via email, which I'll mention later in the video. On my current production, the lab sends everything through Salon Sync as part of an editorial package. That includes the ALE, Avid MXFs, the H.264s that get uploaded to Pix, the original sound recorded on set, and all the paperwork from various departments. Before I run the macro, I'll show you where everything gets backed up so you can see we don't already have a Been There Fix That folder in place. This package is for block 1, so I'll be backing it up under block 1 for this tutorial. And as you can see, there are no existing Been There Fix That folders in any of these locations. Now I'll show you how to not use the macro. If I go into the script folder inside the editorial package and run the macro while it only contains loose files and no folders, here's what happens. When I trigger it, it asks for a folder name. I'll call it BTFT test 1. Then it asks for which block the files belong to. I'll choose block 1, but when I press OK, nothing gets copied. That's because the macro reads folders, not individual files. It looks for keywords in folder names and copies everything inside of them. I wanted to keep this as universal as possible, and the simplest way to do that was to make it read folders only. If it reads individual files as well, I would need to program loads of keywords for every possible file type: edit logs, line scripts, progress reports, and so on. On top of that, naming conventions for individual files can change between productions, or even between blocks on the same show. For example, on my current job, they changed SD for shooting day to just D in certain file names, so relying on consistent lab created folder names felt much cleaner and more reliable. If I step back, so I'm inside the reports folder, now only looking at folders, and open another Finder window and head to one of the backup locations, such as continuity, so you can see the results of the macro straight away. And if I now go back to the editorial package and trigger the macro again using the same name, BTFT test 1, and select block 1, you'll see this time it works. In the continuity backup location, a new folder has been created containing everything from the script folder in the editorial package. And just to show you everything else has been copied, let's check camera reports. Now DIT. Now lab, where both the daily report and the receiving report go to the same destination. And finally the sound reports have been copied over too. Now as you can see from the receipt, the ALE hasn't been copied, neither have the original sound files or the H.264s. That's because the macro only reads the folders directly in front of it that matches the keywords I've added in Keyboard Maestro. If we open Keyboard Maestro, you can see I've tried to make the script as user-friendly as possible. In this section, I've hard-coded the destination paths. ALE is included, but a folder called ALE needs to exist where you trigger the macro, which is why I didn't copy before. You can add more keywords inside the brackets so the macro can recognize more variations of folder names. Just put each word in their own set of quotation marks. And of course, on your production, you'll need to replace the existing file path with your own. As long as what's inside the quotation marks matches the actual file path, it will work. So if you want to copy the ALE, H.264s and the original sound as well as the reports, you have two options. You can run the macro once in the reports location, and then again where the ALE, H.264s and the original sound folder live. Or you can use the folder creation part of the macro to force certain folders to be created even if no matching keywords are found. That way you only type the folder name once and empty folders are created ready for manually copying. This also helps if you receive paperwork via email. Realistically, the macro probably won't be that useful for copying files if you receive them via email. You might as well download them straight to their final destination rather than having the macro copy them there. But what it can do is create multiple empty folders with the same name across all your backup locations. By changing a no to a yes, the macro will make those folders whether it finds matching keywords or not, as long as that setting's enabled. If I go back to the reports and run it again, and call this test2. From the receipt, you can see folders were made for the ALE, sound, and H.264 backup locations. If we check those locations, they're empty and ready for manually copying. And in camera reports, we now have test 1 and test 2. Everything worked the same as test 1, we've just added the empty folders as well. Now I'll go where the ALE, H.264s and the original sound live in the editorial package. Even though the test 2 folders already exist, if I trigger the macro again and use the exact same folder name, the macro will still work, this time copying the files into the pre-made folders. There won't be an error saying the name is already taken, it simply copies the files into that folder. And if we've already done this and the same files were already in that location, it still wouldn't fail and it wouldn't delete anything either. It would just add .copy at the end of the file name. This copy is taking much longer because it's copying video and sound rather than paperwork. You can see the ALE has copied successfully, and the same goes for the H.264s and the original sound. You may have noticed the ALE path uses B1 rather than block 1. On my current production, ALE was the only file path that used a different naming convention for blocks. All the other paths use the full word block rather than abbreviating it. There's probably no particular reason for having two different naming styles, but instead of asking the team to make everything uniform just for this macro, it made me think other productions might also name their block folders differently. So I built that flexibility into the macro. ALE maps to B1, B2 and B3, while everything else maps to block 1, block 2 and block 3. These names need to match exactly what they are in Finder. If the macro can't find the expected subfolders, it won't place the files where they should go. So during this tutorial, when I've selected block 1, the macro needs to see a subfolder with the same name as what's written in the speech marks next to that block. For ALE, that will be B1, but if I change B1 to something that doesn't exist, for example, wrong, the files would be handled differently. I could even remove the subfolder name entirely. This also changes how the files are processed. I'll do this for the H.264 path. And now if I run the macro again and call it test3, the macro still runs, but in the ALE location it creates a new subfolder called wrong, because that's what it was told to look for. It's trying to be helpful. If it can't find something, it creates it. Let's go ahead and delete that. And in the H.264 location, since no block subfolder was specified, it placed the test3 folder directly in the main destination. Some productions might actually prefer that, especially if they only have one block or don't split paperwork into blocks, but we'll delete that as well so the folder structure doesn't get messy. The master sound file is copied normally since we didn't change that path. I'll change those settings back and show you how to adapt the script if you want to add another block. To add another block to the drop-down menu, edit the block selection prompt and add a new option using a pipe separator, in this case block 4. Then you'll need to map block 4 the same way as 1, 2 and 3. The easiest way to do this is copy an existing line, paste it underneath, update the subfolder name, B4 in this case, and make sure the block name matches exactly what you added in the prompt. You'll need to repeat this for each section. Finally, the last thing this macro can do is move files rather than copying them. At the top of the script, change the action from copy to move. If I run it again and call this one test4, you'll see the folders in the editorial package are now empty. You can literally see them disappearing. They've been moved to the location shown on the receipt. As you can see in camera reports, there's a folder named test4. If we go to continuity, you can see another test4 folder. And just to prove the files were moved and not deleted, if we open this folder, you can see everything's inside. The same applies to the other destinations. And because I've left the folder creation enabled, empty folders have been made inside the ALE, H.264 and original sound locations as well. But that's it. That's the macro that organises everything in just a couple of clicks. But like always, if you've got any ideas or requests for future macros, let me know and I'll do my best to make them for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.